title of it. But we'll see what happens. Anyways, I just wanted to go live for a moment. Let me set up my Facebook chat really quickly. Really quickly. We will get everything going. We're gonna watch some of the news of what, because I mean, I was just watching the news all the way home. It's just amazing to me what's happening right now, and the news was just driving me crazy because it just wasn't from a good place. It wasn't from a good Christian worldview. So I just was like, I'm just gonna go live for a little bit, and we'll watch it together. I think we'll weep and mourn together as we just see what's just happening all across our country right now. It's really, 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 really devastating. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me. If you're watching on Facebook or watching somewhere that's not YouTube, I would like to encourage you to go to YouTube and be a part of the chat there. And we are going to figure out, like, what's going on in the world right now. What's going on in the world right now? So let's see. Hold on one second. Real quick. Just pulling up my stream on my page. How are you guys doing? Are you guys watching the news, or is it just me? I was kind of glued. You know, that just confirmed. Let me see if I can change the title on YouTube to something that doesn't use the word protest, and we'll just change it to Fight Night. The demonetization on anything like this from YouTube right now is impossible. It's impossible to get any sort of promotion. So if you're watching, if you go to youtube.com/crownrightsmedia, hey, it seems like there's some people watching right now. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. What's up, Grant? Grant! I just want you guys to know Grant is on every single stream on YouTube, just like I ask every single time. Grant's hit the bell. Grant says, I don't want to watch the news. Me neither. That's why I came out here to do this, because I was just watching it, and it was just infuriating me so badly. Actually, we'll just pull it up, and that way at the very least it's sort of in the background here, and we can see what's going on. I have MSNBC going, and then I have CNN. They're all three of them are going. Well, CNN was going, but it doesn't seem like it's going anymore. But anyway, Fox News is working. So, anyways, I just want to say that first off, thanks to everybody that's watching. Be sure to share the video. If you're watching on Facebook, be sure to go to youtube.com/crownrightsmedia and be a part of the show. youtube.com/crownrightsmedia. If you want to comment, if you want to be a part of the show, you can always send a super chat. I will read your super chat, even if it's an insult towards me. That's just how this works. That's just how super chat works. It's like you're paying somebody for a dunk booth. It works all the time. YouTube is telling me, hey, we already got a super chat from Amanda S for $2.99. Thank you. And she says fist bump. So thank you guys. By the way, there's a lot of people in the YouTube chat, but YouTube is telling me there's only one person watching, and I don't think that's true at all. So that's weird, because I see at least 3 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Oh, I hate social media. It's really bad. It's just in terms of blocking it out. So anyway, we have these riots that are all over. Look at that. Look at that right now. What's happening? Holy cow. They're happening all over the country. These riots are happening pretty much everywhere. It's just really sad to see. It's really tragic. And I think that the problem that I'm having with this sort of stuff is just seeing, one, how foolish the news is. The news is exaggerating protests versus riots. I was watching a scene and they were saying, oh, look at those protesters. Those rioters, they're getting violent now. And they weren't. They were just kind of pushing each other around because they were kind of like in a big crowd. But of course, according to the news, that's violence. Another time they were like playing tug of war with like a crate. It looked, I don't know, like I don't want to say it's staged, but it looked really staged. Though I don't know if you saw it, like maybe they'll go back to pictures of it, but there was video and they had this guardrail, and then you had like the Secret Service, and then you had the protesters, and they're playing like tug of war with this guardrail, and it was like, you guys aren't like seriously trying to rip down a guardrail. Like that's not seriously ripping down a guardrail, but the news was like, violence is broken out in front of the White House. And I was like, I don't think so. So I just don't think so. But anyway, thanks everybody. Yeah, Grant, you're right. They tried, people have been trying to peacefully protest. I think that's kind of what people are trying to do. But the problem is, when you have people that are protesting police brutality, a militarized police state, when they're protesting all this stuff, and the police show up with SWAT gear, heavy armored Hummers, and they have rubber bullets and tear gas, and they're just ready to launch on the protesters. It doesn't really help de-escalate a situation. It doesn't help de-escalate it at all. It doesn't help at all. And I wanted to show you guys this. Hopefully my stream doesn't get shut down for playing this. But I think it's pretty important. But this is James Brown. This was in 1968. This was one day after the Martin Luther King assassination. So one day after the Martin Luther King assassination, in an attempt to squelch the riots, to stop those riots, James Brown went and did a concert. I believe Boston Garden is in Maryland. I'm not sure. I think it's in Maryland. I don't know. Okay, but wherever Boston Gardens is, and then but anyway, he did this, and fans rushed the stage. And remember, this was all about de-escalation. The reason he did this concert was to de-escalate the situation, make sure that there wasn't riots after the MLK assassination, to try to tone it down. And this is what happened when the police got involved and was stopping the fans from getting on the stage. So the police officer just pushed that fan off the stage, which I don't think he was wrong to do. We don't, who knows who that guy was. But anyway, watch what James Brown does when this happens. It's in Massachusetts. Thank you for telling me where Boston Gardens. Of course, it's in Boston. It's been a long day. I've been filming with John Barros all day. It's been a long day. But yes, of course, Boston Garden. That is why we have a YouTube chat to correct me. But anyway, watch how James Brown reacts to what the police just did in Boston Gardens.
Wait a minute. Move off. I'll be all right. I'll be fine.
I'll be all right.
I'm all right. Hey, no, I'm all right. You want to dance? Dance.
So all these people get up on the stage now.
Wait a minute. They're all right. That's all right.
And then the police just came again, and James Brown was like, they're all right. Chill out. So again, he's de-escalating the situation. Any sort of, I think, when Martin Luther King got assassinated, there's a lot of thoughts that it was the government, and it was along those lines of who did it. Remember, this is just one day after, so there was a lot of tension with the government and all that stuff that was going on, and so for him to do this concert for free in Massachusetts as a way to limit the riots, I think is pretty significant. And so you see this happening as a way to limit it, and then you go to, CNN, and CNN is broadcasting these riots as if they're doing it in a way to incentivize and to promote this sort of stuff as a way to, they're creating this racial tension.
Those are not guns, okay? They are the propellant canister for the flashbangs. Flashbangs are what they sound like. You're probably pros at this point, with so many of these we've seen so many times over the years. Flash, the big light.
I don't like this guy, by the way.
The bang, the sound, disorienting.
I don't like Cuomo.
Worrisome.
Not a fan.
So back away. They shoot them on an angle at the ground, essentially, so that there is a bounce effect, and they can create.
See, so here's the difference. As a means to stop the riots, remember, people are mourning, and what we're seeing here with all these riots, we're seeing people mourn. They're mourning the death of a man by an abusive government. That's what happened. There was a man, an employee of the state, a militarized employee of the state, killed a man. That's what happened with George Floyd. That's what happened. A man died at the hands of the government, and there's people in the streets. They're mourning. They're weeping. They're trying to figure out how to come to terms with what's happening. And these people don't have a Christian worldview. These people don't have a way to understand this, to deal with this, to comprehend what's going on and to fit into a biblical framework of justice. They're surely not going to get the right answers from the Gospel Coalition, who's going to make this about race. I just want to say something about the race when it comes to the idea of systemic racism or systemic injustice or all that sort of thing. What happened with George Floyd wasn't systemic. It was actual justice. Actual injustice. And when we talk about this systemic stuff and now it's deeply rooted and all this sort of thing, that doesn't help the situation when we're talking about that. This is actual injustice that we witnessed with George Floyd. And the problem is George Floyd was killed by these people's God, which is the state. Their God killed an innocent man. Imagine finding out that your God is an unjust God and he is brutal and he kills innocent people. That's what's happening. These riots are a result of the fact that these people's God is wicked and just exposed themselves as not being a good God. And of course, their God is the state. Their God is the state. And the state is not a good God. That is not a God that you want to rule over you. That is not a God that you want to worship. And now we're seeing the downfall of that God all over the country. And just they don't know how to deal with it. So they set things on fire. They riot, they loot, they raid private businesses, even the private businesses of their own people in their own communities. And they don't have a God of the Bible that can reconcile the difference between grace and justice and injustice and justice and the wickedness of man and how a government is supposed to rule and operate. They don't have that mentality. And they're being lied to by organizations like the Gospel Coalition or these liberal social justice Christians who, instead of using their money and resources to fly out there and to proclaim the gospel, are writing articles that further spreads this racism narrative, which even in its legitimacy of the racism narrative, they're not offering any solution whatsoever to how the government should function under God's law. None of them are. None of them are. On one hand, you have churches who are saying, submit to the government no matter what. And then you have these people that are like, seriously? No matter what? Submit to the government when they kill an innocent man? Submit to the government when they're throwing tear gas on people who are in the streets trying to mourn? Submit to the government no matter what? That's what we have on one hand. We have churches who are doing that. And then on the other hand, we have Christian organizations who are trying to use this to cause unnecessary division and are outright lying and trying to spread, dare I say it, the gospel of George Soros. The open societies, rioting, destroying a civilization from within, all that sort of stuff is what we see. And so cities are on fire right now because these people have been told that their salvation is in the state. These people have been told that their salvation is in the government and who they vote for, and voting Democrat, and even in some instances voting Republican. That's their God. That's their salvation. That's where their rescue is. And now that's been exposed for all to see. It's been exposed for all to see. That sort of wickedness, that sort of injustice on behalf of their God. And they're setting the city on fire. People don't know what to do. And nobody is out there, right, that I know of anyway. Nobody is flying out to Minneapolis. Nobody is having evangelism outreaches and concerts and are telling people about Jesus. Candace Owen posted a tweet today, and she says, "We need you now, Kanye. We need you now, Kanye. Where are you, Kanye?" And she's absolutely right. I think that was very, very... There's a lot of truth behind that. For Kanye West right now to fly out and do a concert in the streets of Minneapolis and have a pastor come and preach the gospel would be one of the absolute most amazing things. Oh, look at this. It's got a super chat. There are a lot of conservatives, even some you've done videos with, who paint anyone who disagrees with the killing of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd as SJWs. Why do you think that is? I'll get back to your question. I'll come back to that, but thank you for the $20 super chat. C Marsh 669, really appreciate that. But I just want to finish my point, and then I'll come back to that. So the point is that we need people to be in Minneapolis, to be in the streets of these cities where people are rioting. Even if they were wrong, even if that their sense of injustice is wrong and what happened was just. And by the way, I'm not saying what happened with George Floyd is just at all. It absolutely was not just. But even if they were wrong and what happened was just, we need to be there and offer hope. One, with the gospel, that that cities might repent of their sins and trust in Christ, Nineveh style. All the people might come to Jesus, repent, and trust in his work on the cross, part one. And number two, that the repentance of the people, just like in Nineveh, will carry its way up, that the king would hear what is happening. And the laws of the land would change as a result of the repentance of the people. That's what we need to happen right now. That's what should be happening right now. But instead, you have the media creating this race war. You have Soros creating this race war. You have the Gospel Coalition creating this race war. SJW is creating this race war. They're making it a race war. And even if the racism is genuine, even if there's legitimacy to the racism, and I think that the fears of black people, that the police forces are indeed racist, I think there's a lot of legitimacy to those claims. I've been witness to it personally. So I know that exists. It is real, but it exists because men are wicked. It exists because men are evil. It doesn't exist simply because people are white. Racism exists. Police brutality exists because men are evil. So what we need is the gospel, but we also need a solution to the problems that are practical and applied in Scripture. So you have, God's law. God's law says, hey, look, this is how you deal with injustice. And Ecclesiastes 8:11. Tommy, thank you for sharing that verse, by the way, in the chat. When the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. And I don't know what translation that is, but I've heard it differently than that. But either way, the point is that when justice is delayed, evil prospers. It festers. Evil festers like a sore, an infection. It just grows and grows. And it's interesting to me because I was thinking about this when they said that they arrested the guy today, and the attorney says, this is unprecedented. We've never arrested an officer as fast as we have this guy. And I was thinking, why? Why not? Why? Like, that's a problem, don't you think? That the officer that has been arrested, which it still seems like a long time. To be honest, the officers that were standing next to the officer with a foot on the guy's neck, on George Floyd's neck, those officers should have arrested that officer immediately. For sure. And that didn't happen. And that's why they should be found guilty too. But you have to ask yourself, well, why is it taking so long? Why is it taking so long? For other instances, but this one, we've set a world record with this one, and I just think that's an issue, and that's a problem. So to get back to C. Marsh, I don't want to forget you, C. Marsh. So there are a lot of conservatives, even some that you've done videos with, who paint anyone who disagrees with the killing of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd as SJWs. So the ones that disagree with the killing of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd as SJWs. Yeah, there are a lot of conservatives. They were that way for Ahmaud Arbery, but it seems like George Floyd is such an open and shut, based on what we've seen, that there's a lot less. And I think the reason why they're painted as SJWs is because our country is so divided, right? So just think about this specifically. Liberals are in favor of big government. Conservatives are supposed to be in favor of small government. But who are the people that always rep the thin blue line? Who are the people that always support the police no matter what? Who are always very, very complimentary to police, even in the worst of circumstances? They always want to make sure that the police are defended first and foremost. Who are those people? Those are the conservatives. The conservatives are the one that wants to give money to military. The conservatives are the ones that want to give money to the police state, to local police organizations. The conservatives are the ones that have created private prison industries. The conservatives are the ones who support tyranny at a local level. And the liberals are the ones that support tyranny at a federal level. That's how it is. And so you have these conservatives who want to defend the police right away. And they go, oh, these SJWs are making this about race when it's not about race. Well, it might not be about a race, but it is an act of injustice. We don't know the heart of the officer that killed him. I was watching a video today that said that both George Floyd and the officer that killed him worked together doing security at a club in the same city. They worked at the same club. The club owner was talking about how they were both employees at the same time. So I don't know if it was racism. It could have been that that officer had a grudge against him based on working with him. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know it's about racism. It could be. Men are sinful. Men are racist. Police, there are racist police officers. It's absolutely 100% true. It really is. So you don't want to turn it into a race war for no reason. But you don't want to neglect that at the expense of the hearts of those that are there. So, but anyway, James Baird says, first off, thanks for the $5 super chat, James. He says, thanks. Do you think that another civil war could be on the horizon? I would say that another civil war should have been on the horizon a long, long time. We're way past due for that. So I personally, I don't know what it would take to start a civil war at this point. I have no idea at all. But I really don't. I just don't know. So hold on, let me just. I'm doing some YouTube tests with the videos that are happening right now. That's why I'm just changing the name real quick. But I think a civil war is long justified for abortion. It would be weird. Like, I was thinking about this today. If there was a civil war right now that took place, if this was the very start of the Civil War in the United States, what side would we pick? Do you know? Like, what side would you pick? So we would essentially have two groups. We would have conservatives and liberals. But I wouldn't want to be on the side of the conservatives who are supporting police brutality. So I wouldn't want to fight on that side. And I wouldn't want to be on the liberal side who, are fighting for abortion and all these other things. Like, what side would... I think Christians... It wouldn't be as clear-cut. A civil war nowadays would not be as clear-cut. I think what needs to happen is these inner-city and poor communities need to arm themselves and properly train themselves how to defend themselves. And not rely on the police departments, not to rely on the government. I think all of that is important. But Dennis says, I find it amazing everyone is getting a free pass to break laws at will. That's absolutely true, Dennis. But it's a tough situation for the officers, right? Because if they attack these people who are protesting and rioting, that's just going to escalate the situation. Any attempt to shut this down is just going to escalate the situation. So, it's not a good look for police officers at the moment. That is for sure. By the way, if anybody would like, let me just do this on YouTube. Send the Discord link, and let me open up Discord. If somebody would like to call in and just talk, we can do that. I'm totally down with doing that. If you can join the Discord and just send me a message in the chat if you want to come on, and I'll call you right away. The link for the Discord, well, there's the link for the Discord there. right there. And you can join the Discord, and you can be a part. You can call in. You can actually have a conversation. We can talk. We can have a conversation. If you agree with me, disagree with me, think I'm a right-wing conspiracy theorist, or you think that I'm a liberal, whatever. You can join the Discord. We can talk right there. Let's take a moment and just see what's happening with the protests right now. Let's just listen to them for a minute.
The dollar store, and up to this point, we've seen really just a small number of cops out here doing anything about it. Shannon?
All right, Mike, please keep us updated, and we'll check back with you as that situation continues to unfold there in Minneapolis. We want to take you back to the White House, where Leland Vitter has been reporting on a very raucous crowd. Leland, we want to make sure that you're okay there. Tell me, because I know that you said that there are more officers on the scene now. This is directly outside the White House. That's right. What's right behind you over your shoulder. But what about the crowd? Can you tell us, has it grown? Has it dissipated at all as we're now almost near
Chantz, if you want to join the Discord and talk, just join the Discord and send me
you can probably see me looking around
a message in the call and request channel, and I'll message you and call you.
Grown, but in intensity and anger is kind of grown. And if you cover these things enough, you get a sense of who's looking for trouble and who's not. Earlier, may have miscalculated that a little bit in terms of being able to interview people and try to talk to them. It's part of the problem of trying to hear what people's grievances are and talk to them versus just hearing these really angry rants. As we look there now, this is the standoff between the Secret Service and what's left of the people who have survived.
I just want to say this about the riots in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. If any of these are staged, I think it's this one at Washington, D.C. Because anybody that's stupid enough to try to get people to storm the White House, that's going to cause a lot of bloodshed. And I feel like for the most part, most people know that you shouldn't storm the White House. So I just, we talk about like, well, some of these are staged and a lot of this is just media hype and stuff. The Washington, D.C. one in front of the White House just doesn't seem realistic. It just doesn't, I don't know. It's just not the one. You're not going to jump the fence to the White House and survive. But it feels like something you would want to at least attempt to see if somebody could do. If you were going to start a fake riot, that would be, and you would just want to cause as much media commotion as possible. If you're like George Soros and you want to start a civil war, this is absolutely 100% of the 100% the place you would do it.
Completed. So, Shannon, now it's up to the protesters, really. The Secret Service isn't going anywhere. And unlike anywhere else, this is a stand that they are going to make. They have drawn a line in the pavement here between the bricks of Lafayette Park and the pavement of Pennsylvania Avenue. And these protesters seem to be able to chant whatever they want, throw firecrackers at the Secret Service. But they're not going over this fence anytime tonight, Shannon.
No.
Yeah, that is the point of...
Do any of those people out there, is there anybody in Washington, D.C. that thinks they have a chance to jump the White House fence? Is there anybody, like nobody thinks they're going to jump the White House fence. None of them do. So, that's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But like I said, the problem is that these people's God have just killed an innocent person. The government has killed an innocent person. When you vote for liberals, you vote for the government as your savior, and then your savior goes and kills an innocent person. They're raging against their God. This is exactly what we see with Elijah. When they destroyed themselves because their God failed them. This is exactly what we see. Their God failed them. and the result was they stabbed themselves, they killed each other, they destroyed themselves. And this is why it's so important in a time like this, just to preach the gospel. Let's have a concert. You know, a beautiful eulogy concert right in the middle of Minneapolis, and proclaim the gospel right there. Just Jesus is your solution. That's what needs to happen. Jesus is your solution. Beautiful eulogy concert. They come back. I know they're gone, but they come back just for a concert in Minnesota, just like James Brown did in 1968 to stop the riots when MLK was assassinated. That would be absolutely incredible. Grant wants to call in. Grant called first. We'll go with Grant, and we will call him really quickly. Ooh, Grant, we are calling you. You're being called right now. Where's that waiting music? Hey, Grant, are you there? Can you hear me? Hello? Grant? This always happens to me. Maybe it's oh wait, it's my Grant, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, hold on one second. Let me switch my Are you there now?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. I think people should be able to hear you now. So
Yeah.
What's up, man? What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? First off, by the way, Grant, I don't know if we've ever spoken before. Maybe we have.
We did one time. I was out in Phoenix last March. We talked at a wedding for a little bit. So
okay, Grant, thank you for joining. You're like a super fan. You're on every stream, dude. I really appreciate you smashing that bell.
I try my best.
I can always count on you, Grant. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I think I've just been pretty amazed at just the black versus white stuff going on social media, just seeing friends turn on each other. And, you know, these are people that like identify as Christians, and it's just kind of been really heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of that idea of like what you've been talking about, how it's like, you know, it's really an opportunity. Like, we just need to turn to God, and God needs to be proclaimed. So,
yeah,
just like kind of over the last few days, like just wanting to, you know, I was even talking to a friend last night about how like this is a time to lament and mourn, and turn to God instead of just like, you know, spitting fire at each other.
It really is. Yeah, it's hard to do that when all the evangelical organizations, though, are pushing the narrative of everything is about it's about
Hello?
Donald Trump, right? So
yeah,
everything is about Donald Trump, and because everything is about Donald Trump, we can't really just get down to the issues of, well, hey, well, what's the Bible say the answer to this problem is right now, you know?
Yeah. And it's also too that like I say the mainstream media.
yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, I was you know, one thing too I really like doing on social media is when people post videos of like CNN or even Fox News, which this isn't a rebuke in any way, but but just like, you know, I just say if it's on a cable channel, then you probably as well just turn it off. It's just not worth it. Like you were even saying, like just in that video of outside the White House, I mean, if you climb that fence, that's just suicide at that point.
Who's gonna do that? Why are they even out there? Like they're it's like they're out there hoping, please somebody jump the fence, please somebody jump the fence, please. Yeah. It's like that's why they're out there. Cuz like, CNN's out there, everybody is at the White House right now just begging that somebody will jump
Yeah.
that fence. Because if somebody jumps that fence, this is what happens. Somebody jumps that fence, they're gonna get shot, rightfully so. By the way, I'm against militarized police, but I am not against people protecting the president of the United States. I think that's a biblical role of the government. And if people jump that fence, they're gonna get shot, rightfully so, and then that's just gonna cause a race war.
It's also a lot of tax dollars too.
It is a lot of tax dollars.
Well,
Yeah.
I was like even just thinking last night, before I went to bed, like just thinking about like why did they ramsack a Target in an AutoZone? Like that's someone's job and livelihood.
Yeah.
And then I wake up in the morning and I see, oh, they did finally get to the police station, which is it's like that makes more logical sense to me. Like if a police officer killed a man, like, well, why are you going for a for-profit business? You should
right. Yeah, I'm still trying to think through the question in terms of like if the Tea Party was a legitimate act against a government action, and government property in that sense, the tea was essentially a symbol of the government property. Then it would seem to me that the police station being burnt down is a legitimate act in the same way. It's a lot more violent than throwing tea, though. That would be my concern. But
then you also have the accusations too of the St. Paul police officer that went around breaking the AutoZone windows. And
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. It's so strange. You just don't know. You never know. You know, our government is so corrupt. There's so much money on like just this coverage that's happening right now. There's so much money in terms of ads and advertising and articles and clickbait and all this sort of stuff. There's so much money on the line. Like this is a dream come true. And then the other problem too that makes this so serious is that people have been locked up for days. Yeah. They've just the good thing about being locked up is that sinners sin less. Right? The strip clubs are shut down, right? All these other things. They can't go to the club party. They're not you're going around fornicating as much as they normally would. But to a pagan, that just builds up, man. You know, like that desire to want to sin and to rebel against God just builds up. And this is just an opportunity, man. You know, so.
Yeah. Well, it's also just a breaking point of, you know, we've been seeing, you know, tyranny over the last 2 months, like people being forced to stay home and all that. And then when you have a boiling point of what we're seeing right now,
there's already a sense that the government is being, there's already a sense that the government is being tyrannical, and then the government goes and kills somebody innocently, right? Or kills an innocent man. And so now it's like, just like, I mean, these people have lost their jobs. The government has shut them down. They can't make any money. They're being arrested for not having a face mask on, all these sort of things. And then now the government's just killing people in the streets. I think their anger and outrage at the government is justified. My concern is how they're going about it. And so. And
I think too something that was really good you pointed out as well is just the fact like it's a fact that like someone that was an image bearer of God died, it's not necessarily a race thing. It's just the fact of like some person innocently died that didn't have to.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, all right, Grant.
Either way.
Thank you so much for watching the show and calling in and all the other times you watch the show. Really appreciate it. But I think there's more people in the Discord that want to talk, and I want to give them a chance.
Awesome. Thanks, Marcus.
Yep. See you, Grant. Wow, that's fun. So I guess the next person is C. Marshall. Let's give C. Marshall a call and see if they answer. I don't know why I say she. I don't know what the C stands for. So Zanny619 just sent $4.99 as a super chat. The Twitter thread I just posted reports that the people tearing up Precinct 3 were 75% white, speculating, but looked like paid Antifa meth heads. Well, that is speculation, Zanny. Thank you for your super chat.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, this is Curtis.
Curtis, thank you so much for calling in. What do you want to say?
Yeah, so much on my mind. Probably my main thing is I just see that. I'm sorry, a little nervous. This is my first time. But yeah, sometimes I think if conservatives were more consistent with their beliefs on limited government, they would probably could get more minorities to vote Republican if they were more consistent with that.
If they were more consistent with, say that one more time for me.
Well, I think if Republicans talk a good game about how much they hate big government,
right?
But when it comes, they're perfectly fine with big government in the form of police having more power.
Exactly.
And I think if they were more consistent, they would probably be able to get more minorities to vote for them. You know, not that I'm saying that all minorities should just flock over to Republicans, but it's just the past few months, I've just kind of got tired of Republicans talking such a good game about, oh, we hate big government, but it's like,
yes,
but it's crazy.
No, you are absolutely right, man. I said that earlier in the show. I said conservatives support tyranny at the local level and liberals support tyranny at the federal level. So that's the only difference between the two. And so you have, Republicans who are supporting a very heavily militarized police state, and for sure there will be Republicans that say we need to fund the police departments more because of this, right? We need to give them more military equipment. We need to give them rocket launchers and tanks, and so at a local level, it is only going to get worse. And then you have, of course, the liberals who are saying, well, look at these conservatives supporting this sort of police brutality. Vote for Democrats. And it's just like, yeah, but you support a sort of fiscal tyranny on people at a local level. So, dude, you're absolutely 100% right, man. This is why the solution to this problem is self-government and teaching people to defend themselves and train themselves and not rely on a police department.
Yeah. It's funny how a lot of these situations happen to poor whites, but they don't get a lot of coverage because they don't fit the narrative. Because the narrative is the racist white cop and the black. But a lot of these things happen in poor white communities, but they don't get coverage.
Right.
And I was just reading an article in the Washington Post about these set of laws called the Police Bill of Rights, where it makes it pretty much impossible to really get a bad cop fired. They almost function the same way the teachers unions function.
Yeah, they are. They're corrupt union organizations. Yeah, no, there's no question about it.
Yeah, they function the same way, and it's funny how conservatives, they hate all unions except for the police unions, and the liberals, they're the exact opposite. They love all the unions except for the police unions.
Right.
And it's just so much hypocrisy on both sides.
Yeah, dude, you're 100% right. You're absolutely right. I think self-government is the key here. And there's a lot more that comes with that, but the main thing is to look to Scripture in the Old Testament, and you can see how people are to rule themselves. Well, a lot of what we're seeing, I was talking about it today, like 1 Samuel 8, one of the judgments for having a king is a military that will rule over you, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a law. It actually says that the military will take your property. Is what it says in 1 Samuel 8. So actually, let me pull that up because it's a good passage. But
I remember when
Curtis,
you said that on a previous show.
Yeah, Curtis, thank you so much for calling in, man. I'm going to pull up this Bible verse, and I think there's more people in the Discord that want to talk. But thank you dude, you were 100% right. Grant in the chat says snaps for Curtis.
Thank you.
Thanks, dude. Have a great night. Oh yeah. So 1 Samuel 8 says, I'll pull it up so we can see it. It's and he will appoint for himself this. Now this is to the this is to the people who are demanding a king. They were demanding a king to rule over them, and it says, so Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking for a king from him. He said, "These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots and to his horsemen and to run before the chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands, commanders of fifties." So notice what we see. We see commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties. So we see here, this is a federal level military and a local level military. Thousands to fifties. So there'll be a massive army, and there'll even be local armies. And some to plow his ground and to reap his harvest and to make his implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. So essentially, the commanders of these men will take your own property. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olives orchards and give them to his servants. So there's theft that comes along here. And it continues. It goes on. He will take 1/10 of your grain and of your vineyards and give it to his officers and servants. That's a 10%. That's a 10% tax. In 1 Samuel 8, that's a judgment for wanting a king. And we have way more than 1/10. The government takes a lot more than 1/10 from us already. He will take your male servants and female servants and the best of your young men and your donkeys and put them to his work. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves. But the Lord will not answer you in that day. And that I feel, I look at those military. Goodness, look at that. That is heavy. But anyway, that's what I feel is happening right now. Is like people are crying out to God, but God will not answer because we wanted a king, and this is what we get. This is the punishment that we deserve. So let's see what's happening here. Let's see what Fox News is saying.
On the protests, part of that may be that people who saw this news conference were watching at home on TV, and the protesters were already out and about. But clearly, some of them must have seen it on their social media. But it really did not seem to have much of an effect on the protests tonight, Rick.
Okay, Jonathan Seri live in Atlanta. Jonathan, stay safe. We'll talk to you again soon. Let's turn now to Fox News contributor Ted Williams, a former...
All right, I'm calling Chantz Nail in the chat. See if he answers, and we will talk to Chantz. Yeah, somebody says, I agree. One of the good things coming out of the lockdown is that more Republicans are seeing the power of drunk police. Chantz, are you there?
Yep, there it goes.
Hey, man, thank you so much for calling. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, thanks for allowing me to be on here.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about?
I'm a local pastor here in my community, and I think about a lot of the stuff, and we're in a really rural community, so like the riots and stuff won't really affect us.
Right.
But if we do go to more of like a civil war or civil disobedience and a large scale, how would you see the local churches helping out their community in ways of, I don't know, taking care of the weaker ones, or just there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, I think I think one of the things the churches need to do is they need to have a proper understanding of biblical government, right? They can't do the John MacArthur thing where it's just obey the state, because according to these people that just saw, oh, just obey the state. They just killed a man, right? So it can't be that extreme, and then it can't be the extreme of everything the state does is wicked. So I think the churches need to be able to teach a proper biblical law and look to the Old Testament and look how government is supposed to function and look at the consequences of electing a king to rule over you, or electing big government to rule over you. That I think is first and foremost. If you read, I think it's called Sermons During the Time of the American Revolution, is what it's called. You can just Google Sermons During the Time of the American Revolution. It'll come up. It's like a PDF you can get on Google Books. You can read the whole thing, I think. And it just has these past sermons from pastors who 100% just knew what the Bible says about how government is supposed to operate and function. And they were teaching their congregation these things in such a way that they could go to war and they knew what they were fighting for. They knew the righteousness that they were longing for and could fight for and were willing to die for. And I don't think the citizens today know what's worth fighting for, where are they wrong about. And I think if we go to a civil war now, it'll just be a bloodbath, a completely senseless bloodbath with no end, no solution. So that's just my thoughts.
There's no goal.
Yeah, there's no
that we're
goal.
fighting for.
Yeah, there's no goal. The goal in this, in all of these riots, all these people that are rioting all over the country, the goal should be our nation must return to God's law, right? In the Bible, when the prophet read the law and all the people listened and they wept and then they celebrated and danced because they heard the law, they forgot about it. The law was forgotten in the land, and then they found the scrolls and then they read it to everybody, and then they wept and had music and celebration and feasting, and they rejoiced and repented. That's what needs to happen, right? That's what churches need to do. But so it's not ignoring it, but it's providing an absolute solution that's rooted in scriptures, and that's worth fighting for. I'm gonna tell you right now, if there was a massive civil war, and I would fight to the death on the side that says we have to return to God's law, and we're fighting for God's law. So
yeah, and would you say eschatology drives a lot of
100%, 100%. I think we saw that this week. A lot of it is just, well, things are just going to get worse anyway. Even if it's not outright that, I think subconsciously there is a mentality of things are just going to get worse. So, what's the point? Right. But yeah, man, thanks for calling in, dude. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Isn't a Discord such a great feature that we can take phone calls and stuff? I really like that. So let's see. Let's check in on the news and see what's happening, what's going on. Something's on fire. This is Minneapolis is on fire.
In some of these major cities around the country, Rick.
Ted, this is night 3 of these kinds of protests. This is not a surprise, or shouldn't be, to any law enforcement agency. And I'm wondering why they wouldn't roll a prison bus in there and have officers come in mass to these neighborhoods and street by street, block by block, disperse the crowd. And if people won't disperse, you arrest them for violating the curfew. You put them in the bus and you take them out of there, like you say they did in Baltimore. Why not do it in these other cities?
See, that's the thing. That what that guy just said is if they're violating the curfew, they need to be arrested. And it's what government gives a curfew to their people, the free people? They're free people. The idea that that's a solution is just not a solution. You don't these people are rioting against tyranny. They're rioting against tyranny, and your solution is, well, impose a curfew. That's more tyranny. See, this is why Fox News, their answers aren't good. They don't have the answers. They don't have the solution. Let's see what MSNBC has for a solution right now. if they even have one, or CNN, whichever page refreshes. By the way, thanks to everybody that sent the super chats. Really, really appreciate it. Zanny, James, and C Marsh 669 and Amanda. Really appreciate you guys sending the super chats. It means a lot. Let's see what's happening on
what
CNN.
What they're going to do to enforce the curfew. Are you seeing arrests being made?
We haven't seen a single arrest. There has not been a moment where police and protesters came that close. There has not been that moment at this point. The closest that police and protesters come is when the police advance and the protesters stay put for a bit. The only other time that we've seen police in this at night is on top of the 5th precinct. Okay, here come the officers. You see them advancing there.
Yep.
They are advancing there. They are coming towards, and so you see the protesters are starting to move back. Cars move into place sometimes, but this is somebody who is trying to get out of the way. But they have advanced forward again. And again, like I'm telling you, you'll see this scenario play out over and over.
We need some dudes with some half-mile hailers out there that's just preaching the gospel. That's what needs to happen. Chantz says, I forgot to ask, how do you think the peaceful protests to open up the states, and now that it's more of a race war, you see more harsh lockdowns on the protests that turn into riots? Yeah, I think the government is going to have to find a way to deal with all these people who are trying to ignore their authority, whether it's the conservatives who are doing the COVID-19 protests or it's these people who are protesting against the police. The government is going to respond in the way the government responds, and that's with more force. And I think it won't be long until the government are killing protesters. That will happen. Hopefully not tonight or over the next few weeks, but if there's not some sort of change on behalf of the government, then it'll definitely happen. Let's see. These two people are fools, man. Let's see what they say.
The direction where we don't come right back here as quickly again. Stay with us.
Okay. Van Jones. While we wait for everything to come back up. But first off, thanks everybody for joining the chat who are participating. I was just watching these riots all over the country, and I just couldn't sit still. I don't want to enable ads. Hold on. Continue to cite. I don't want ads on MSNBC. MSNBC doesn't like my ad blocker. Here we go. Let's see what's going on here.
The governor of Minnesota today talking about the role that the National Guard is to play. The sun has set. The fires are raging. It sounds like there isn't much in terms of law enforcement response to the kind of flames, the kind of action that you're seeing there.
For all intents and purposes, David, it absolutely is a vacuum. We heard the mayor say yesterday in a press conference that, no building is worth a human life, trying to explain the reason why police pulled back from that 3rd precinct building to avoid another potential confrontation with the crowd that had swelled to several hundred people who then overtook that building. And today, that looks to be the same strategy to some extent, despite having the additional resource of the National Guard in the city of Minneapolis and more state police officers.
Can I just say how silly it looks that these guys have these masks on while the city is burning on fire and they're worried about coronavirus? You know how absurd that is. Chantz, you said check this out. This was last night in Louisville. If you send a link on the YouTube chat, it's not going to come up. You have to send it in the Discord, by the way. So if you send it in the Discord, I don't see. Yeah, you haven't sent it. Yeah, just send it in the send the link in the Discord, and you'll be able to. I'll pull it up and we'll see what it's about.
Much you know about what's going on elsewhere in the city. I marvel at how ambulatory you've been. Ali Velshi as well, on foot, making your way from place to place as all of this erupts. I know that the 5th Police Precinct is in Lyndale, so a ways away from where you are now, but I heard you earlier this evening talking about the fact that there were reports of people swarming that facility as well. How much does this feel contiguous? How much do you have a sense of the breadth of this? How widespread this is in these two twin cities?
Well, we do know that I-35, the interstate, was shut down earlier today, David, by hundreds upon hundreds of people who took to the roadway and blocked it from traffic for at least several hours. And so that is, you know, one of the most, I guess, visible examples of just how mobile these masses have been. St. Paul saw a lot of damage yesterday from another Target store there.
Boring. Commercial break on CNN, and let's see what, back in D.C.
Standoffs with officers there, many in riot gear. Some officers were apparently injured by objects being thrown by demonstrators in the crowd outside the White House tonight, where demonstrations continue. There are also ongoing demonstrations in New York City, apparently centered in Brooklyn outside the Barclays Center, and we do have a correspondent, Alex Hogan, who is live in New York City tonight to update us on the status there. Alex, you're not in Brooklyn, just to be clear, correct? So things look pretty calm where you are.
That's correct, Rick. So tonight we saw some of the protesters start here. They did march to Brooklyn. This is the second night of some of these violent protests that we're seeing here in the city. But some good news, at least here in New York, things are really starting to settle down. And again, that is a comparison to things that we're still seeing ongoing riots in other parts of the country. But things are starting to settle down. But as I mentioned, people moved from Manhattan to Brooklyn. We saw people surround a police van earlier tonight. They actually set that police van on fire, and the way they did that, they threw fireworks underneath the vehicle. They threw a flare gun inside the car. They also spray painted the car. They jumped on top of it. They spray painted dead cops on the hood of it before it went up in flames. Large crowds gathered around the Barclays Center.
I can see how setting a police car on fire is a legitimate comparison to the Boston Tea Party, right? They're protesting the government, so they're taking the government's property, which, by the way, are taxpayers' property. They're taking that and they're setting that on fire as a symbol of they're not going to stand for that sort of tyranny anymore. But writing dead cops and all that other like that's where it just gets out of control. And that's why these sort of protests need to be rooted in a biblical framework and in biblical grounding. Let's see what Bill de Blasio has.
Pain they did not create, the contradictions of our society that we need to resolve. Take your anger out on those who hold the power.
But again, we're seeing those protests, those fights with police and with those protesters there. Many of the people that we've talked with say that they don't necessarily think that these protests might change anything, but they have to do something. They have to speak up over what they say they've seen far too many times, and especially with people having so much extra time on their hands because of the coronavirus, so many people staying home, deciding this is motivation enough to come out. Because of these protests, we're not seeing people social distance, of course, everyone wearing masks, but it simply does not make a difference. The mayor, of course, reminding people if they can keep that safe distance to do so. Rick?
Yeah, I suspect they might be wearing masks for a different reason tonight, Alex. The NYPD has extensive experience handling large crowds and large protests, and they have the largest police department in the nation, so they seem best prepared for incidents like this. Do you have any idea how many of these demonstrators were arrested and any estimate of the crowd size?
Look at those military tanks that just went by her. The problem is we're just responding with tyranny with tyranny. It's just not a good look. It's just not. It's bad. Grant says, "Oh no, no one is social distancing." You know, it's funny. It is funny. I saw a tweet that said everybody was complaining about the riots. The liberals were complaining about the riots for COVID-19, But now they're supporting the riots for the police brutality. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing how quickly the tables have turned on that, for sure. So, MSNBC has not been very interesting lately. I was hoping to have more MSNBC. They always have hot takes. So, it doesn't look like any of these channels are doing any live coverage at this point. I think it's just too late at the East Coast. Unless this is live. Is this live?
But what triggered the nationwide rioters? There's a big difference between rioters and protesters. I believe what triggered that was the failure of the Minneapolis police officials, not the cops. The cops are obeying their orders. But the political leadership in that city gave us all a signal last night by causing the officers to stand down, by retreating. And Rick, you had it on Fox tonight. They even got out there and proclaimed a curfew. It was going to be enforced. If you're not off the streets, we're going to arrest you. Guess who retreated? The police and the National Guard. That kind of emboldens people who want to cause mischief all over the country to do what they're doing. And as a result, this is what we have.
And as we've seen so many times, Steve.
Yeah, they're trying to make it. This is a failure of liberal leadership. This is a failure of the liberals in Minneapolis. And it's just like, it's not. It's just a failure of, really it's a failure of the church for not teaching biblical justice. That's what I would say. It's ultimately a failure of the church. Liberals, of course, are going to respond with tyranny on the people. Conservatives are going to respond with tyranny on the people. They're both going to do it. So it's just silly. It's amazing how out of control this is, and nobody has the answers. And Fox News isn't going to let me get on there and tell them the answers. I'm not going to get a platform on Fox News for saying, let's open up God's law. That if I was president of Fox News, do you know what I would do? I would call up Jeff Durbin, and I would have Jeff Durbin for as long as it takes him to. I would have him just on Fox News just read God's law in the Old Testament. He would just exactly like they did in Scripture. I would call up Jeff. I'd say, Jeff, we're gonna have you read the Bible, the entire Old Testament, starting from 10 a.m. until you finish. And I would just that's what we need. What do you call it? What do you call it when you're in Congress and you're just like, you speak for hours upon hours upon hours on end? What's that term called? I can't think of it for the life of me right now. It's when it's a filibuster. What we need is Christian pastors all over the country to filibuster with God's law. That's what we need to do. So that's what I'm saying. This guy is an interesting character. I don't know who he is.
And perhaps not enough to allow his officers to keep the streets calm.
Well, you know, anyone in a political position has to be neutral no matter what their feelings are. Because you're absolutely right. If they favor one side or the other, they're emboldening the side that they're not favoring. So they need to have a very balanced approach towards this. And the way they need to do it as they move forward is to, and I've advocated this for years, community policing programs.
Look, you're not going to have politicians. You're not going to have politicians that are going to be neutral on anything. There is no neutrality. So see, this is why I like the live stream major events from Fox News, because it just shows that they just don't have a Christian position. They just don't have a Christian position. By the way, this news, the anchor, this guy right here, man, he has a speech impediment, and he is hosting on Fox News. It's proof that you can do anything.
It is a nationwide situation of demonstrations, not all of them violent, but many of them are.
True. That's true, Rick, but we also need to get a message, especially to young people, that the police are not our enemy. They are not anyone's enemy.
Well,
yes, they have to be dealt with, and they have to be brought to justice, but the police are simply not our enemy, and we need to pray for them, and we need to help them by being obedient to the laws.
Well, what's...
Yeah. So did you just notice that the police are not our enemy? We need to help the police by being obedient. It's true that police aren't necessarily the enemy, but in this instance, the reason they're protesting is because they feel that the police are legitimately their enemy, right? The police are the ones that give them tickets for their headlight being out when they can't afford to go to the body shop and get it fixed, or the police are their enemies when they stop and frisk, or they pull them over for no reason other than the fact that what was that video I was watching? I was watching a video the other day, and the police pulled over this guy apparently because I think it was because he didn't have a license plate light. I guess the light was out. That's a thing. I don't even think I have a license plate light. But apparently, supposedly, it was a law. But actually, it wasn't. The video I saw, the guy actually knew the law and knew that there wasn't a law. And he was just pulling him over just so he could just harass that man. Because he was known to film a lot of police encounters. So the police were just harassing him. So, anyway, so the point is that police can and do all the time terrorize communities, whether it's terrorizing communities through speeding tickets, traffic tickets, running a stoplight, all those sort of things. So
shot, they may get beaten. So what do we tell them? We tell them, look, just be as safe as you can, but in the best interest of your own safety at this moment, you can't go out there until we take control of the streets. And I hope to God, Rick, that we don't start seeing people die, cops die, innocent people die, because we may see not just cops on the streets, we may see military on the streets. Never before have we seen that in this nation.
Steve Rogers, retired lieutenant detective for the Nutley, New Jersey Police Department. We appreciate your time tonight, Steve. We are going to continue with our live coverage of these protests coast to coast right after this.
All I'm going to say is that if we're in a situation where the military are enforcing a curfew on people, that is absolute tyranny at a level we haven't seen before. And I'm going to stand against that. I'm going to be against military being on the streets enforcing laws, right? That's a federal organization, the military. This is federal enforcing state and local. It's martial law. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, we've been pretty much under a national curfew anyway because of this COVID stuff. It wouldn't be that difficult for the military to just expand that authority and expand that curfew and lockdown that's already exists because of these riots. And I think that's what people want. I think liberals specifically, they want more and more nationwide lockdowns. They want to make the economy as bad as possible before this next election. All those sort of things are absolutely true. I really do believe that. So, As Nikki says, the gospel is what is needed. It's absolutely true. But anyway, guys, I've had a long day. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you guys for being a part of this and taking part of this. Be sure to sign up for the Fight Laugh Feast Network. You can go to fightlaughfeast.com and you can join there. Be sure to also, big deal, Fight Laugh Feast Conference in Nashville in October. You absolutely want to be a part of that. It's going to be great. Me and my wife are going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll be fighting and we'll be laughing and we'll be feasting all at the same time. It'll be amazing. And some people might ask, well, how is it possible to fight, laugh, and feast at the same time? To which I say, well, the same way it's possible that the Trinity is 3 in 1. It's possible. You can fight, laugh, and feast at the same time. I don't know if that's a valid theological. There are no valid theological points for the Trinity, but that was just one that came to mind. So anyway, go to the conference. We'll fight, laugh, feast all at the same time. It'll be fantastic. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the show. Thank you for all the super chats. Really appreciate the super chats. Really great. Thank you guys. That really means a lot to me every time you guys do that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure, by the way, if you're watching on Facebook or even if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, please be sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, and then make sure you hit the bell too. That way you can be alerted every time I go live. That's very important because YouTube sometimes they don't want to recommend me in the timeline, so you might never know. So if you hit the bell, it'll at least up your chance, maybe like 20%. I don't know. But again, thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of it. Really appreciate everything.